all these trials and tribulations, fighting monsters and dangerous adventures, only to fall off of a roof and die. And in the Odyssey it says his soul flew off to Hades. And so Elpenor was very unlucky. It's sort of a comic irony. You know, he's going through all this stuff, fighting, killing, and he survives, and then he dies by falling off a roof at the end. So it's comic irony. But the point is, those two accounts have too many spooky similarities for Luke to be writing history. And I wanted to I'm not going to read the accounts. You can go do that easily enough online. I wanted to read the similarities. And then there's a really interesting thing at the end. Check this out. Odysseus and crew left Troy and sailed back to Achaia. Paul and crew stopped at Troas, which was ancient Troy, having left Achaia to sail back to Jerusalem. The narrator in both accounts refers to the parties as we, as a group. And they stop doing that when they start describing the boy. After a sojourn, the crew and Odysseus eat a meal. Same thing with Paul. After they travel a bit, the people with Paul eat a meal. Disaster comes at night, and in Paul's case, it comes at midnight. And in this Odysseus version of the Odyssey, when I think it's pronounced Circe or Circe, I'm not sure. When she's talking, the halls are darkened, and then in the upper room, there's plenty of lamps. So there's a need to describe that it was very bright or very well lit in the upper room, where it was dark in the Odyssey. Elpenor fell asleep, Eutychus fell asleep, and both their names start with the letter E, but I'm not going to put significance to that. The narrator in the Odyssey switches to third person. The narrator in Acts switches to third person. Elpenor was a young boy. Eutychus was a young boy. Elpenor fell from a roof. Eutychus fell from a high place. 3 stories. Elpenor's soul flew off to Hades, whereas Eutychus's soul remained in him. And Luke makes a point to use the word soul, which the Greek word for soul is psyche. So Luke makes a point to say that his soul is still in him, as opposed to flying off to Hades or hell or wherever the case. The associates in the Odyssey fetch Elpenor's body dead. The associates in Acts get Eutychus's body alive. So it's a transvaluing. Circe's halls were dark. There was plenty of light in the upper room. Whereas unlucky Elpenor died from his fall, Paul raised him back to life, or he was still alive, and so Eutychus was very lucky. Elpenor was not buried until dawn. Eutychus was not carried home until dawn. And Circe spoke until dawn before Elpenor's accident. Paul spoke until dawn after Eutychus's accident. There's just a lot of weird similarities. But here's another, and to me this is the weirdest of all coincidences. Elpenor in the Odyssey was framed or depicted as being very, very unfortunate. Unlucky. And Eutychus in Paul, or in Luke's account, was considered, or he's depicted as being very lucky. He fell 3 stories, but he didn't die. His soul was still in him. Well, guess what the Greek word Eutychus actually translates to? Wait for it. Lucky. I submit to you that this story of Eutychus in Acts chapter 20 is not history. It's a rewriting of the Elpenor account from the Odyssey. You can find all this out in Dennis R. MacDonald's book, The Homeric Epics in the Gospel of Mark. But this is about Acts. It's not about Mark. This is very, very interesting. Why would there be so many similarities? I mean, Paul is coming. Let's see. He was stopping at Troas, having left Achaia. I mean, the locations are the same. The transvaluing, where Elpenor died, Eutychus didn't. God uh, if you believe it was erasing, God could do a better thing than the Odyssey. See, their whole point was to improve these stories and make them more fantastic and more noble and heroic. And you see this evolution. And back, one more thing, when you said you believe Mark is not the first gospel, so then that means you believe that Mark took Matthew's gospel. I hate it when my screensaver comes in. That means you believe Mark took Matthew's gospel and got rid of all the powerful stuff of Jesus and toned Jesus down to where Jesus had to spit on a guy to heal him, and where Jesus was basically less powerful than Matthew. Things don't happen that way. Things don't get more primitive as they go. They get more sophisticated and complicated. And that's just one reason, that's just one reason why most scholars believe that Mark was the first gospel written. And so I still challenge the idea that it's even remotely believable after examining all the evidence that Matthew was written before Mark. But anyway, there are many, many reasons why Acts is not history. And I may just do a whole series of videos just on that. Because I find it interesting, and I just think that if somebody could see all the things that I have already seen, it would change their mind. Because see, it changed my mind, and I'm not special. I mean, I'm not anybody different than anybody else. I just had a lot of time on my hands. But so anyway, that's my case. I just wanted to touch on a few things regarding the reliability of the documents, the very documents from where we get the resurrection notion. Certainly Paul, but also the Gospels, and Acts infers it because he's, going back up to heaven. So that's my case. I think we've gone over 2 hours, or we're about right at 2 hours. Anyway, I want you to get the last word because I don't want to just hog everything. You say what you want to say, the way you want to say it, and we'll call this over if you want to. I said everything I wanted to say, and I think this has been a really cool debate. We've been very civil. We've laid out what we wanted to talk about, and I had big fun. so yeah, I'll give you the last word, and you just say whatever you want to wrap up with.
All right. Well, yeah. Before I actually get to what I really wanted to end in saying, I'd like to, answer that objection you had to my idea that Mark was not written first and that Matthew rather was written first. And you said that things don't get more primitive as you go on. Things don't get more unclarified. They don't get, more primitive. I'm just going to stick with that wording for now. Um, and really how I explained the similarities between Matthew, Luke,